So I'd like to take a few moments to share with you how we identify and assess the underlying condition so that we can actually make repair to your health condition. When you have a functional health problem, you want to look at the body from a physical standpoint. Physically, when we have misalignments of the spine from injuries and traumas, obviously that would cause some interference on the nervous system as we earlier spoke about. But the way we identify them is very simple. We look at the body. For instance, we can check your posture. By noting a low shoulder or a low hip or a head tip and tilt to one side or rotation in the spine, it identifies what the spine looks like underlying. We also would want to assess things like your range of motion. How well does your spine actually move? What's the flexibility like? We would want to look at the spine in flexion, for instance, bending the head forward. We'd want to look at extension, where you go backwards with the head. We'd want to see how the neck moves from side to side in a lateral motion, where we might have slightly decreased motion to the right compared to the left. These would be identifying factors showing an underlying physical condition with the spine. Other things that we may use to assess this would be reflexes. The reflexes would tell how well the nerve gets the signal through to the muscle in the body. Remember that those nerves also go to organs, so we can identify certain areas through the reflexes. For instance, C7 nerve root in the neck comes down the arm, goes into the hand. It might cause numbness or pain down into the hand, but that same nerve goes to the thyroid and can control thyroid function. Another area we may look at physically is leg length. By laying down on the stomach, looking at the leg length in comparison of right to left, it can help show imbalance in the pelvis. If there's rotation in the pelvis from some earlier injury, it might show as a short leg. Now, all of these factors can be changed as we alter the alignment of the spine. And these would be things that we'd want to go back to and reference at a later date to show our marked improvement. Now, the second area we talked about from a hormone standpoint. Hormones obviously control a lot in our body from a stress angle. For instance, the adrenal glands producing adrenaline, cortisol. These hormones have a very specific function in the body. Now, in a medical standpoint, in a traditional healthcare standpoint, these hormones would be measured through blood tests most commonly. And you may have, at some point in your life, thought you had a thyroid issue, gone in for a blood test with your family practitioner or an endocrinologist to find that you're normal. When you know you're not from a functional standpoint, you might feel fatigued. You might have a problem with weight. You might be losing hair. You might be cold. Your body temperature could be different. All of those are signs of a thyroid problem. However, a lab test may show you within normal limits. Let me explain to you why. When a lab takes a sample, for instance checking thyroid, number one, they use thyroid stimulating hormone as the primary diagnostic on this. Thyroid stimulating hormone is made by the pituitary. It's not a direct thyroid hormone. So it doesn't necessarily give a direct feedback of how the thyroid itself is functioning. The second thing that happens in a lab is they give you a high and a low number, and you'll notice that there's quite a gap in there. The way they determine that is based upon a bell curve. So as they make a bell curve, the top 10% are too high, the bottom 10% are too low, saying that we're out of range. Now, this is very informative in an emergency room. If you're in an emergency room setting and you have a dire need at that moment for life or death, those measurements will tell you when there is an extreme problem. When you have a slight functional change in your body, this may not measure. You still may fall within that normal parameter that shows up on the blood test. However, still displaying symptoms indicating a problem. So when we look at the body functioning with hormones, the things we would want to focus on, if it were a thyroid, body temperature would be very important. The thyroid acts as a thermostat. When your body gets cold, it stimulates your body to burn more energy, thereby producing more heat. If you get hot, it would slow down that metabolism so your body does not produce as much heat. So body temperature would be a very good indicator of how well the thyroid is functioning. We could look at things like your blood pressure in several different positions, whether it be seated compared to standing. We would want to look for that change and how the blood pressure changes when you do alter position. Does it go up? Does it go down? Does it stay the same? Those would be indications of a normal or an abnormally functioning adrenal system. We can look at a reflex of the pupil by shining a light in your eye. The pupil normally in response should close down and hold for a minimum of 30 seconds. When the adrenals are weak, we'll commonly see that open and close, and it will flash back and forth, and that is a sign of weak adrenals. So these things are functional tests that we would do in the office that we can do on a normal office visit without having to wait for lab results. Another area from a functional physical standpoint that would be very important to us would be X-ray. X-ray can show us the positioning of the spine. It also can tell us how long the problem has been present. The longer this problem exists in the spine as a period of years, the more likelihood that we will get irreversible damage from arthritis. And we'll go into that a little bit more later. Now, the third area we spoke of was cellular function. And a cellular function, you might remember, we can get toxins in the body and it can kind of gum up the cell and alter its function or slow its function. It creates inflammation. This inflammation can be measured with pH. So we can use something as simple as pH strips to see what the saliva tests like, much like you would check chemicals in a pool. When it shows alkaline, the body is in a good condition. When we're acidic, it shows inflammation and toxicity in the body that needs to be removed. So these are all very simple tests that we can do on site to determine what the underlying cause to your problem is.